What if Luke is not actually fully dead? What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another one of my TV show reviews. Today we are talking about Gen V, the spin-off show of one of my favorite shows, The Boys. And today we'll be talking about the first 3 episodes because that's just what premiered at the same time. And before we get into the nitty-gritty details, you have my spoiler warning. There's a lot to talk about, so you want to do yourself a service by watching it first and then coming back. Also, at the end, I'll be talking about my predictions for the future episodes, so make sure you stay tuned for that. Alright, let's first talk about my thoughts overall for the first 3 episodes and just general thoughts. So much like The Boys, they continue with this political commentary and just parroting real life in pop culture, and I think that's very well done. Although, one of my problems with that is some of the references seem to be very current, as in using YouTuber names and naming TV shows that have recently come out. And as much as I understand those references and I thought it was funny, I'm scared that watching it back in a few years, it might feel a little dated and not as funny when I watch it then. But for now, it gets a pass. Also, Gen V, about college students, is obviously kind of a parody of Gen Z culture, and I think there's a little bit of a missed opportunity there because the tone of the show isn't very Gen Z coded, as you will, which I don't have an issue with because it's so tonally similar to The Boys that it makes me just feel like I'm watching an extra special season of The Boys. So it doesn't take me out of it. I just think it is a little bit of a missed opportunity to have it be a different tone and introduce like Gen Z quirks. But at the same time, that might make it harder to sell that it's connected to The Boys world. Now, as I said, the tone is very similar to The Boys. It continues being very edgy, very punk rock, very violent, and it accomplishes this with the majority of the main cast being women, while The Boys, most of the cast is men. So I thought that was a very interesting difference and just shows how well the creators understand their content and understand the tone of the type of world they're building. Also, this show uses a lot more VFX, surprisingly. Part of it is because they're in this school with all superheroes and the focus is on a team of superheroes instead of a team of humans that are trying to fight superheroes. And so we get the opportunity to see a lot more ranges of powers, which explains why they have to use more VFX. And I will say the VFX doesn't look great, but for a TV show, I think it is passable, it looks good enough, and it doesn't really take me out of the show. And along with the VFX comes very graphic scenes. And could they do without as much of the graphic nature of the show? Sure, but I do think it adds to the show. It's like the cherry on top. And yes, it might put off some people from continuing to watch the show, but I think at this point, The Boys universe has established itself as this kind of really out there show. So it's basically like you gotta get with it or just don't watch it. I also noticed that the pacing of the show is really good. I mean, 3 episodes in and we're already talking about the woods. They're already discovering what's inside. And I expected it to drag it on for the whole season, and that would be the whole mystery of what is the woods, what's inside of it. But no, it happened within the first 3 episodes, and it gets me really excited because now I'm like, okay, so what's going to happen next in the next 5 episodes? And even in episode 1 alone, so much has happened. It establishes all these characters and then even has time for a great ending. So a little bit about the cast itself. I'm not super attached to any of the characters just yet. I think The Boys does that a little bit better, but I think these characters will start to grow on me as we continue on. I especially think the actress for Marie is a wonderful actress. She does such a good job. I think she's definitely the standout of the cast so far. And I really like the fact that we're going back to the theme of I want to be a real superhero. I want to do good things and be a hero versus the being performative part and being a brand as part of Vought's narrative. And that reminds me of the early Starlight arc that we explored in The Boys. And it totally makes sense that these characters in this show are not jaded by Vought yet, because we are so used to seeing the side of corruption from Vought in The Boys, but the rest of the public has not seen the true side of Vought yet. Alright, cool. So let's talk a little bit more about the specifics per episode. So the first episode, oh my gosh, the first literally opening sequence was incredible. It reminded me of how I felt the first time watching episode 1 of The Boys when A-Train just ran through Huey's girlfriend, and that scene was instantly stamped in my brain forever. I think they do a great job doing it this time as well, where I did not expect Marie's parents to just get obliterated like that. I also think it's a great setup for Marie's character. We immediately know that she is traumatized from her own powers, how she is trying to overcompensate for her insecurities now as an adult, trying to become a hero, and trying to prove that she's not a monster to her sister. We're also introduced to the woods immediately. We see Sam running off, and then Marie kind of stops him from running and sets up the mystery of what the woods are. And then the main characters kind of get together as a group, they go to a club, and then shit goes down because Andre accidentally punctures someone in the neck with his metal creation while trying to impress a girl. And luckily Marie is there to kind of save her and stop her from bleeding. But as the result, Marie is caught on camera, and then she is the scapegoat for causing this scene because the rest of the group, they're deemed to have more potential and have more star quality according to Professor Brink. And so the punishment is put on Marie, and she is threatened with expulsion. Meanwhile, while this is all happening, Luke is starting to get hallucinations and seeing the woods and seeing his brother. And then he figures it out, and then he goes to Professor Brink's office and burns him alive. But little does he know, Marie is there and sees him doing that. And so now Luke is forced to kill Marie. And so he chases Marie, gets into a fight with Jordan, and then eventually ends up outside where he tells Andre a little message about where he hid his phone, which we'll figure out in the next episode. And then he unalives himself. And that's how the first episode ends. So some things of episode 1 that I found really interesting is, first of all, we get to explore the basics of everyone's powers so far. So Emma's power is shrinking as far as we know, and it delves into the technical side of how that works, which she has to make herself purge in order to shrink. And I've never thought about that power working that way, but it totally makes sense, and it sucks in application. Also, we get to see Marie's power being both a destructive power and a healing power, since she was able to stop the girl at the club from bleeding out. Yet she killed her parents in the beginning with her powers. And both Emma and Marie's powers are a little problematic for sure. I think they do it on purpose as a discussion for self-harm and eating disorders, but I think that will definitely put off a lot of viewers, especially just how they explicitly show Marie cutting herself. I mean, remember what happened with 13 Reasons Why? I hope that they don't run into that same issue. Also, when Jordan was fighting Golden Boy, I was a little confused on Jordan's power, I'll be honest. So I understand Jordan's male persona is invulnerable and maybe super strong, and then Jordan's female persona has some sort of like sonic ability. I'm not really sure. I hope they clear it up in the future episodes. I do think it is a really cool concept on paper to have basically 2-in-1 powers, but I hope they execute it a little bit better. Also, we didn't really get to see a lot of Andre's powers. All we kind of saw him using it was grabbing his water bottle and then creating this hummingbird out of a coin. So I am curious to see how far his powers can go. Also, is his powers just limited to metal, or is it actually telekinesis? And if it is metal, do we think he can control metal inside of someone's blood, which would be sort of similar to Marie's power? I also like the rankings aspect at God U because it kind of reinforces this idea that the soups need a ranking for them to feel powerful in society and that their weakness is the public opinion. And it's basically like the Seven, but mini version of the Seven. And I also have another question that they haven't answered, and I hope they do, is how Luke started getting these hallucinations of his brother anyway, because I'm confused if Sam was the one trying to enter his dreams, or maybe he was just starting to lose it and maybe he was just getting like psychic powers at the same time. I don't know. I hope they clear that up. Moving on to episode 2, it starts off with Ashley. I love Ashley, and it kind of shows that Vought is still very, very much in the picture, and we see Ashley communicating with the school board, which includes the dean and Andre's father, who used to be Polarity, so I think he'll play a big part as well. Then we kind of see how Dean Shetty covers up the whole story, as Vought does, and makes Luke the villain of the story and how he's a murderer, which I guess he did murder the professor. And as a result, Marie is part of the top 10 at the school as the first freshman to ever do it, and so she's kind of a celebrity now, and she's invited to these interviews. And while she's doing the interview, there was one line that I found really funny, which was she's either gonna crash and burn or become the Black Starlight, and definitely her story is very much giving that. And at the end, she kind of does give in to the media training, and she experiences that, but she does feel guilty, so she has kind of a conscience still. At the same time, Emma starts befriending Justine, or as she thinks, and then Justine backstabs her and exposes her on the internet, and now everyone knows she purges to shrink down. I couldn't imagine trying to do that, to ask for views and ask for subscribers. And at the end of the episode, Andre finds Luke's phone, which he hid inside of the statue, which I don't even know how Luke put inside in the first place, but we'll just gloss over that. And then Andre discovers what the woods are, which leads him to investigate. So what I really liked about this episode is that it shows everyone has their limitations in their powers. And it's really good because these are supposed to be beginners of their powers. They're not at the Seven's level of being overpowered yet. And so it gives a lot of potential for growth, whether that be Marie having to cut herself, whether that be Emma having to purge herself, or Kate fainting after using her powers too much. There's a lot of limits that they have set, which I like. All right, so in episode 3, we start off with a flashback of when Sam first discovered his powers and he was kind of going crazy, and they were visiting him at the Sage Grove Center, and they lied to Luke that Sam committed suicide, but now we know that's not true. And Emma now is really, really self-conscious about everyone knowing that she has to purge for her abilities, and Marie saves her before she becomes way too small and unable to move. And Emma gets a lot of attention this episode, particularly because Andre recruits her to go on a mission inside of the woods and kind of spy on what is on the inside. And she is able to find Sam and kind of connect with him in maybe more than a friendly way. So some thoughts about this episode is Andre and Kate together as a thing? What? Your boyfriend and your best friend just exploded the day before, and now y'all are hooking up? I don't like that. Also, Dean Shetty mentioned that she had a daughter. Who could this daughter be? I think she could come to play later. I don't think they would just say that line for no reason, so I think it's setting something up. Also, during the memorial, the gala thing, whatever it was, we just kind of see how terrible the parents are. How Emma's mom was very much like Starlight's mom, forcing her to be in these TV shows, disregarding her problems completely. Jordan's parents were very transphobic, apparently, and wants Jordan to be a boy at all times. Their dad was like, you should choose to be a boy at all times. Why make everyone's lives more difficult? It was also cool to see Kate's backstory, how that was also really screwed up, how she accidentally told her brother to never come back, and he really did never come back. And the very last scene when Emma went inside the guy's ear and went out the other, that was so cool. I don't think I've ever thought about that as a way to kill someone, but it totally makes sense, which is why the world of The Boys is so cool, because they have these edgy applications of their powers that you would never think of in like something like Marvel, let's say. All right, now let's talk about some of my predictions going forward. So I definitely think we'll see Marie's sister sometime in the future. I think there's a high chance that she also has superpowers now, because why would her parents only give Marie Compound V and leave her with nothing, you know? And I'm thinking she could be connected with the Woods as well. Maybe she's held captive there. And we saw at the beginning about this Mira Rehab Center. I think that might come up in the future as well. Maybe Marie's sister is there, or maybe a Mira Rehab Center is the same thing as the Woods. Not too sure. If anyone has seen Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the Woods very reminds me of the Initiative in that show, where they were basically training students to become soldiers for the government. So maybe in the Woods, the point of it is to train these superheroes to be mind-controlled weapons for the army. Wouldn't be the most original idea, but it is a thought. I also think somebody, at least one person, is going to make it into the 7 by the end of this season. It could be Marie, it could be someone else, but I think that will definitely happen to set up the plot for season 4 of The Boys. Also, when we were looking at the rankings for the top 10 students, we didn't see some of the people that were listed on there, so I feel like we're going to see more of the top 10 students, and maybe fighting, maybe them getting killed in one way or the other. And now I have some predictions for how the characters' powers will grow and escalate. I think Marie's bloodbending abilities, and I'm gonna keep calling it bloodbending because that's just what it looks like. I think she will eventually be able to control the blood in someone else's body and control them physically. I think Emma will be able to go the opposite way by becoming giant instead of just shrinking. And I think Kate might have some sort of villain arc if she continues to use her power too much and she deteriorates. Maybe she becomes like a Dark Phoenix type and loses control. And maybe she's able to control someone's mind without even touching her. And now I have one last theory. It's really out there, and I don't even know how much I believe it myself, but just hear me out, okay? They made a point of, why did the school take everything out of Luke's room? Why did they just clear it all of a sudden? So something is strange about that, right? What if Luke is not actually fully dead? Now his powers are like setting himself on fire, right? It's kind of like a phoenix. Maybe he's like a phoenix where he can revive from the ashes, which is why they collected his remains, collected all of his stuff, and maybe he's going to be reincarnated but brainwashed to be like an evil soldier or something like that. It is really far-fetched, but if it's true, that could be really cool. Plus, I feel like Golden Boy was really important, and for them to kill him off in the first episode, I'm suspicious. I'm very suspicious. All right, that's it for my review for the first 3 episodes of Gen V. Let me know what you guys thought of these first 3 episodes. What are you excited about? What do you think about my predictions? Just let me know. And as always, if you like my content, make sure you subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace out, everyone.